Hey Elaine.
Hello.
The podcast's normally out by now.
I feel this is a criticism.
No, this isn't, let's just be honest, this isn't an instant reaction podcast, is it?
No. Although I do feel like my reactions will still be instant. Does that make sense?
No, because
No,
it's
no, it
literally
doesn't.
not an instant reaction podcast.
There has been some time that has passed.
Yeah, basically recording this on Saturday night because on Friday night we were invited onto the Cinemiles
Yay!
Severance review. The Cinemiles, one of my favourite podcasts, our favourite podcast.
Yeah.
You like them the best?
We've been listening since really, really early doors, haven't we? Because we should explain the Cinemile. If you don't know the Cinemile, are Kathy and Dave, who are a married couple.
They review movies and on their way home from the cinema.
Yeah.
So that's how that's the name that I think when they first started they lived a mile away from the cinema, so they just used to record their walk home. We've been fan of that. They won a British Podcast of the Year like 10 years ago, I think it was.
Yeah.
And we found out of them through that. We've been listening consistently ever since.
I think we'd been listening to them before that award, actually.
I'm telling you now, we weren't that cool. We weren't that cool to be in with their day ones.
Because I remember seeing a photograph of them coming home from the awards, like on the tube, and thinking, oh, that's how you do it. That is the epitome of cool.
But we were really honoured because, like I said, we are huge fans of theirs. And if you listen to this, you probably want to subscribe to their Patreon because that's where they are reviewing Severance. They do monthly classic film reviews and TV reviews behind the Patreon wall. So, yeah, it's a really good value subscription. Like we've been doing it ever since they set it up, I think.
And it's a beautiful community as well. I think we said that to them last night. It's really unique within podcasting to be able to build that really lovely community that's so engaged and just really nice as well.
It's lovely. Everyone's nice. So, I mean, don't join if you're a dick because that'll really put them off us, like sending dickheads across. But yeah. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Dave. And I really recommend you go and check it out because it was a lot of fun doing an episode. And I think we might have dragged them out to be one of their longest episodes.
Yeah, I know. I felt bad about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's not do that here.
Yeah.
let's see where we get
Let's
to.
be concise.
But, yeah, we are gonna give our thoughts on the episode. We've had a little bit of time, so I'm interested to see, whether thoughts have percolated in your mind since we recorded.
So we're now halfway through the season, aren't we? This is episode 5, is it?
6.
We're over halfway through the season. This is episode 6. Attila.
The Hun. Did you get the reference?
No, because I know nothing about who Attila the Hun is or
but
what
did
they
you not
did.
get the reference in terms of fields? And we'll come back to that in a moment.
That's going to be the basis of most of my argument.
But Fields, when he's cooking, he calls Bert Attila, and then Bert calls him Attila because it's Attila the Hun instead of saying Hun.
Oh,
yeah?
I missed that. Yeah.
Do we want to get onto the Fields thing before we move on anywhere else?
Let's go through character by character as we normally do.
Okay, let's hold it on.
Yeah, we'll get back to that.
Yeah, okay.
So the big one of this is Mark and Helly, both innie and outie. Your interactions. We got some more loving.
It's a very romantic episode, and the more I've thought about it, the more I've sort of that idea of the throuple. It seems to be everywhere, doesn't it?
Yes.
In Dylan and his wife, but also girlfriend in the innie world. Then you've got Bert Fields and Irving, which we'll come back to, and then you've got Mark and Helly, Mark and Helena, and Mark's outie, and his wife Gemma,
who may also be called Hannah for some reason.
Hannah. So these 3, coming around in threes, but all very romantic. Lots of things about, apart from Milchek, who doesn't get any romance, which is very sad.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah, I really liked how this was addressed. The one thing that I really, really was thinking about today while I was putting the ironing away was that we didn't linger on this idea that Mark knew that he had had sex with Helena. Well, not in terms of the way that he thought he was with Helly, but Milchek was almost holding that over him. Well, we've not even almost. He was holding it over him in the last episode. It was a threat. He came very close to him in the lift and said, "Have you told her yet?" And he, he was very aggressive with his use of language. So I think in any other show, even good shows, you would get that being, that secret being kept for a long period of time. What I really liked was, as with any workplace, because this is a workplace thriller as well, so any workplace, no one can keep things a secret.
Yeah.
And the only person you have to speak to are your colleagues in this instance as well. Mark doesn't have anyone else to speak to, so he might as well tell Helly what's happened. And I thought he did it really, really well as well. He didn't make it, obviously it is awkward, but
we shared vessels, but he did it in a very him way, and he was honest with her, and he just said, I didn't know it was you, I thought it was you, and he gave her the opportunity to go away, take her shoes off, think about it, come back and speak to him, and then to sort of go off and have sex as they did do. I mean, I would give, if they are submitting for Emmys next year, that is the clip which I want to be submitted for Brit Lauer, where she is reacting to the news, and you see her in the cubicle, and she's got that kind of confusion. She doesn't know whether to laugh or cry about it, and then she goes off and she quietly weeps in the corner, takes off her shoes and sits in a corner and just comes to terms with the violation that's taken place. I was sat there just thinking it's an absolute masterclass from her, and it felt genuine. Like when you see someone taking on that devastating news, and that kind of you must be joking, and then I give her all the awards, but then give everyone all the awards on this. But I mean, we'll come back to that at a different point.
The shoe thing I thought was really interesting. I thought, oh, what a really clever piece of direction, because when you have something occur to you, one of the things that you want to do is to ground yourself, to feel grounded.
Yeah.
And in that situation, it's really, really hard for her, isn't it? Because she can't go and get some fresh air or lie down somewhere. I mean, you could, but you're lying down in a corridor. The thing to get herself into the ground is to take those shoes off, and they're shoes that she hasn't chosen. She doesn't want to be. That's all she wears are these outfits. So the shoe thing really rang true to me. That is something that you would naturally go, fuck this. I'm taking my shoes off. I'm sitting on the floor, and I'm gonna ground myself and work out what I'm gonna do next.
Yeah. And then she decides to take life by the balls, and the sex scene did remind me of Michelle and Stuart from Big Brother going under a table with a tablecloth over it, and
I mean, it wasn't the sexiest of locations.
No, but it did feel very high school.
Yeah,
like high school. Someone at a party decided, had a couple of drinks and decided to,
But it's making privacy, isn't it? It's like,
yes.
There was the tent thing that she was alluding back to because they were in this tent. But also, where else are you going to go? Because I thought, maybe they're going to go into the toilets. And I was like, don't do that. It's like,
it's a bit cliched, isn't it?
Yeah, I was like, I don't really want that to happen. But that was, it was private. It did feel, there was an element of romance about it, although... I mean, the sex scene itself, I thought was very interesting in that, there wasn't much foreplay going on there. It was very much getting down to it.
Do you remember high school?
Yes, but that's what I was. I thought, it kind of rings true, doesn't it? Of two people who want to get this done, really like each other, but are very nervous. And I thought there was some really, really good and clearly thought through, clearly, speaking to the audience who are watching this. There's, a woman saying that she's nervous, but also a man coming back and saying, well, I'm nervous as well.
Yes.
And then there's active consent, coming from him saying yes and her saying yes. And I thought that is so clearly the people who are writing this talking to their audience and good practice. So I thought, I really quite like that. And then afterwards, it was very sweet, and you laughed actually when they were walking down the corridor.
It
and
was
the
a
hair
bit
was
walk
a
of
bit,
shame.
yeah.
Yeah. It was a bit, 90s sitcom, I think, is the thing I'm thinking of. Like,
But actually, when she said to him, "Oh, was it?" She essentially was trying. She was comparing her with him. You turned to me because he goes to kiss her in a very sort of sexy way, isn't it? And you turned to me and went, "Oh, smooth."
absolutely smooth. Yeah. I mean,
it was nice to see.
Probably a way of saying, it was different. But yeah, it was.
What can you say in that situation?
There is absolutely
and actually, for Mark,
yeah.
who is quite, I think he's quite socially awkward.
Yes.
I mean, as an innie and an outie, but he's very socially awkward. I mean, when he says to her, and what I love about this show is there's this mix of seriousness and jollity. So he said in the toilet cubicles, he's just gave her this devastating news, and then he's trying to sort of like talk to her about what's happened, and she then has this monologue about how I don't want her memories, I want memories of my own. And he then turns around and says, "Would you like me to describe the sex?" So she's like, "No, Mark, that is not what she's after." So he could have done that again later on. He could have gone into that awkwardness, but it was nice to see him be a bit smoother with it all. But yeah, I think it's great for them. I'm left with the feeling of I'm rooting for them. I'm interested in what Helena's up to on the outside of Helena, the outie Helly.
Yes.
Because she seems like she's gone a bit stalkery mad.
Going into a Chinese restaurant where Mark's sitting with his quite emo haircut.
And all of his food. He's just really hungry. He just wants to eat his food, and she's staring at him.
That's part of the process.
Yeah. So I worry about her, but the thing that I wanted to talk to you about was it's the Miss Casey of it all. I'm really not that bothered about Mark and his wife.
We touched on this last night, didn't we?
I'm worried now, because that sat with me. I'm worried now that this is like a central part of the show that I'm not really that bothered about. What do you think?
No, well, I think it's a quest. Like it is a quest, and it's motivation for Mark Scout to keep on going and to find Gemma. I don't want Mark S to be with Gemma. I want Mark S to be with Helly.
Yes.
Mark Scout, I mean, he can be with.
But that's how
we've never seen Gemma and Mark together. So I really struggle to ship them at all.
Can I make and I don't normally do this, but I've had this thought. Can I make a prediction about what's going to happen next episode?
Go on.
I think next episode is going to be like a flashback. I think because he's landed on the floor, he's foaming at the mouth, he's gone into his head. I think we're going to, because I think this is the problem, and I think the show knows it's a problem. I think we're going to get him flashbacking to Gemma and him and their past life, and maybe showing it in a way that we haven't seen. You know how everyone goes on about how brilliant they were and what an amazing team they were, but then at the beginning he's talking about bargaining, and he's talking about stages of grief, which have now been disproved. But anyway, he's talking about this bargaining stage, and where you say, "Oh, I would have done things differently. I wouldn't have drank as much. I would have listened more." That's a funny thing to say, and we know he drinks a lot. And he has drank a lot since she's died. Maybe he was already drinking quite a lot. Maybe he didn't listen to her. Maybe they had opposing views on things. So I wonder whether we're going to get flashbacks that then show that their marriage wasn't quite as where we're being led to believe that they were this brilliant couple, and all four of them were going off on these things.
Yeah, and I mean that's a good shout. I think it's. I'm not sure if I want to see that.
Well, no, me neither. But I feel that's where we're going. But if we don't, to your point, if we don't get anything about Gemma, if we don't know anything more about her other than she's Miss Casey and she's stuck down there, we haven't really got anything to go with.
I mean, the other thing is, do you think we're setting up even a little bit Mark Scout and Helena? Because there was definite flirting there. And I don't know. I've been trying to work out what Mark Scout knows of Helena. Now, we obviously know she's the CEO of the
Yeah,
company.
I was glad he did
and-
that because I was like, oh no, he's going to like pretend he doesn't know her. Well, clearly everyone knows her because she's the boss.
But does he know that she is some? Would he know that she is someone who has been inside and severed?
No,
But
I don't think so.
but
Unless the integration is working.
But if we are to be believed, then there was certainly a hoo-ha about what went on at this awards.
Mm-hmm.
Would that not have broken that she?
Oh, maybe.
And it was well known. Like it seems like it was well known that she had been severed and going in as well.
Yeah, oh yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, that they'd said they'd sent her in, and there were pictures, and she was like the poster girl for
this
it.
didn't
wasn't
seem like a
she?
private event. It was, I mean, unless someone knows it different to me, but
Yeah.
that was. It feels like he would know that she might be in with him,
Okay.
even if he's severed. Also, brilliant use of sort of cutting between Innie and Outie Mark through the premise of him waking up and having the sort of the zzz moments where you know what I mean.
I do.
Where he flips between inside and
I
outside.
know exactly
And
what you mean.
I mean, obviously, it's designed to confuse you and put you in the state of Mark, but really, really good direction. I looked up the director. It's Yuta Bracefitz, who done loads of stuff like Stranger Things, Westworld,
Oh, really?
Wheel of Time, Black Mirror. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So,
Very similar sort of thematically as well.
do you want to move on to Dylan?
Yes, please.
So Dylan meets Gretchen again.
Do you get the impression that they've been meeting? This isn't like the second time that they've met.
It didn't occur to me, but it's certainly there's certainly an intimacy going on, which that's certainly a possibility.
I felt this was maybe the fourth or fifth, time, because I love the pictures that they flash up on the wall of like young her and all of that sort of stuff going on.
Because. Remember, is this in the security room from season 1?
Yes.
And so they've used those monitors for that purpose.
Yeah. I just felt there was a shorthand, and also the fact that he's been all the way along going, oh, I don't want to lose these privileges. It's not like Milchek is saying, oh, you've seen her once, do you want to see her a second time? I just feel this has been going on behind the scenes. And also when she goes home, it just sort of feels like Outie Dylan and say, oh, you've seen him again, sort of thing. But yeah, really sweet, and again, it's the same thing, isn't it? Because it's youthfulness, and I think for her as well, it's taking her back to a time when they were like first dating.
Yeah.
When you don't really know about people's foibles.
Yeah, there's an innocence in his eyes that we definitely don't see when we see Outie Dylan around the table with his kids. And he's had life knocked out of him, and I think we most of us of our age can understand that. There is that glint in his eye, and I think it's a brilliant acting job by Zach Cherry again. Going through this, what a difference between just really subtle differences between the acting portrayal of the inside and outside, and the difference. You can totally understand why Gretchen feels his attraction to inside Dylan, because he's funny, and there is that kind of naivety even, that he's like a little lost lamb that's like, oh yeah, scuba diving, and that just brings that up. And I
think watching it as sort of a midlife woman, he's very attentive to her, probably in a way that when you've had 3 kids, that's just not going to be that. It's natural. It's not I'm not criticizing Outie Dylan,
or me,
or you, but it's just a natural thing, isn't it? You get a shorthand. You aren't hanging on someone's every word, probably because you've heard those stories 100 times, or you know who it is that's sending a funny story in the WhatsApp group, and you don't need to ask, oh, what's it that so-and-so said, oh, what's that, but with him, he's hanging on everything she's saying, and he's saying things to her like, I just want to stare at your face. No one who's been married for quite a period of time and has, very small children is sitting, alone in a room by themselves, completely just focused on each other, saying things like, I just want to stare at your face. Do you know what I mean? It just isn't going to happen. So I think for her, she's sort of child free. She doesn't have all these kids around it. She's not thinking about the cookies and the medication. It's time for herself. But I think it also will take her back to her youth and to early days of dating. And to her, it won't feel unusual. It's not like she's going out and meeting someone at a bar and cheating on him in that way. It's still the
the acceptable end of having an affair, isn't
but
it?
It's
really,
still an affair because if the show leads us to believe that these are two separate entities or two souls, as we'll come on to later, then you are cheating on Outie Dylan with the same body, which is interesting.
First of all, I just want to sit and stare at your face.
Yeah, right. If you said that to me, I would genuinely just walk away. I'd just be like, that is just weird.
And listener, this is what I have to live with.
That's right.
But yeah, it feels like when you, and it's probably a cliche that I've seen on TV, but when you get that sort of middle-aged person who's divorced or lost their partner and then has to go out and meet someone new, and then they kind of get, they kind of see a new glint in their eye because it's exciting and it's a new person and they've not dated for a long time and it's stuff like that. So it's a really, really viable and interesting part of this kind of thought experiment that we're having about innies and outies. So I love.
And I worry for them though. I worry for both of them because if Dylan wants to do things with his teammates, he puts at risk this relationship that he's built, and it's a secret. He hasn't told any of them. No, she is putting at risk her external world, and also the fact that they can turn. Her outie Dylan can turn innie Dylan off anytime he wants. He can just leave that job. Yeah. And that guy is gone. So there's all these little risk factors that can be played with.
That's interesting. Yeah, you're quite right. Yeah. I mean, one's in control, aren't they? That's the thing. We're talking about the throuple.
So shall I do my apology now?
Oh, this is new.
So, first of all, I was completely wrong last week when I doubled down on the fact that you told me that John Noble?
John Noble, yeah.
John Noble's character, Bert's husband, was called Fields, Fields. And I was like, no, it isn't. Thinking, no one's called Fields. It must be some sort of like Norwegian name, like Fields. I think I was thinking of like Niels. You get Niels, like Nils. I think someone at school I went to was once called Niels, and he was from Scandinavia.
Yeah, like how Theresa May ran through fields of wheat. And
So I was like, it just can't be Fields. So I was like, it's Fields. Having not looked it up, went straight on to IMDb afterwards. And actually, John Noble's character at the time didn't have a thing against it. And then later on it did say Fields, as in the fields of wheat. And that became very apparent this week when he had quite a starring role in it. So yes, I'm very sorry that I did not... Well, what did I not do? I'm sorry I was wrong and you were right.
Again, this is a vision of my life because you will absolutely double down if you've got it in your mind that something's right.
Well, I did, yeah.
But without any evidence.
But look at me coming clean on the podcast. And
I mean, we're talking about the other thing where you've not apologised this week. Or...
Yeah, I know. I think this is why it's sore for you. I think the field thing's really sore for you because Mark's been really ill since he's come back off holiday, and I have been the least sympathetic that I've ever been in my entire life. He's been coming back home from work, and I've been saying, "Oh, how's it been?" And he's been saying things to me like, "Oh, I'm starting to feel a little bit better," and I have just completely ignored the fact that he's even been unwell and gone, "All right then."
Oh yeah, you're just tired after your holiday.
Tired after your holiday. You're just so hungover from your holiday.
And who knew that tiredness was contagious?
And then after we recorded with the cinema last night, I became incredibly unwell with the worst sore throat, a nasty cough, and had to had to go and sleep in the back room.
Everything that I'd said was happening to me.
So I feel that this Fields thing also has so much weight packed into it. But yes, I'm sorry that I was not sympathetic to your illness, which I know I have a habit of not being sympathetic to anyone's illnesses. And then when I'm ill, I'm really, 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 really bad ill person.
Yes.
So
yeah, genuinely the
there's
worst
all
ill
of-
person I've ever
I am
met.
the worst ill person. Yeah, I really am. I must try and work on my life.
The difference is you actually will refuse medication as well.
Yes, don't want
we
to
have-
take any meds.
We have vitamin C tablets that we know will improve
Hate
a
them.
cold.
Not putting that in a glass of water and drinking it. Drink anything else but that. Stomp my little feet and walk around going, I just want to be ill. I'll be ill. It'll be fine. I'm not drinking that mug. Anyway, should we get back on with their Fields and Bert and Irving? Fields and Bert, another couple that have little tete-a-tetes when they're sitting round a table. Do you get the impression that marriage has been through some interesting turning points?
I think they've seen some shit together and been through some shit together and done shit to each other.
Yeah, do you think so?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I get the impression that John Noble is almost like a saviour, a person in a relationship that comes and saves the other person, because Outie Bert seems to have been this scoundrel, that he's done some bad things that mean that they think he's going to hell, and they truly believe that. They think he's going to hell. And John Noble's character is the one that talks to the pastor, that thinks about these things very, very strongly. So, yeah, I felt that he was more of like not the good person, but someone who doesn't have a past and who probably didn't.
Well, he's confident he's going to heaven.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking.
But I mean, to be confident you're going to hell as a Christian, I'm not a Christian. I'm not familiar with the workings. You quite often laugh at me for how little I know about the Bible and things like that.
It is true.
But it's my understanding that you will be, if you are true, you will be forgiven.
You'd be forgiven, yeah.
What shit's he done? Well, I mean, there's plenty of theories that we've spoke about that.
Well, it's like it's the biggies, isn't it? It's like murder.
Well, top five, yeah, top five. top five of the Ten Commandments.
But that's quite a big thing to say to someone who's come round to your house for dinner. Oh, by the way, I've been so bad, according to the rules of my faith, that I'm not going to go and be with my God. So I've had to sever myself so that my innie can go to heaven with my husband. But again, not realising and not really taking into account that the innie might not want to be married to John Noble. The innie might not fancy John Noble. As we've seen, like Bert fancies Irv.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's... Well, I mean, there is the covet thing that,
What, coveting your neighbour's
well,
partner?
Yeah, your neighbouring data refinements. But, yeah, I mean...
It's complicated, isn't it?
It's complicated, but do we think that Bert is involved in the
Lumen?
whole... the whole of Lumen?
Massively. I was thinking that he seemed hugely cut off from the innie life when he did that video. When it was Outie Bert doing the video for the retirement. And there was a lot of comedy to it, because obviously Christopher Walken's got funny bones, and he can switch from being funny and light to being very dark, which that I think the dining table scene showed really significantly. But there's that bit at the end where he's almost like saying to the person off script, right, switch it off now. There was a what's the word I'm looking for, like dismissal of,
yes.
I'm saying this stuff because I kind of have to. I understand, like, you're there, you've had a nice time, I suppose. And then he just looks away and he's, well done, Bert, off I go. So I felt then that he wasn't a particularly good, in inverted commas, person, that he didn't really seem to have any sort of empathy for what was going on. I don't think there was anything in there that said, oh, he belongs in Lumen. But it did remind me of the videos that Helena did, where she was like, you are not, it wasn't that strong, but you are not a person, or no, your request is denied. It was the coldness.
There is that underlying thing of, I will never meet any of you. And it said almost in a, almost in a comedy way, but very matter of fact. Yeah, it's...
But it's what Fields says to him that's really, I think, set the cat among the pigeons. And this whole idea of he's saying, oh, you've had too much to drink, and no, it wasn't that time. And he's like, well, yes, it was. And it didn't seem like Fields is the sort of person to get that sort of thing wrong, apart from there was this suggestion that there's a drink problem. But you could do that with it. I thought that was so well done. We have all been in situations where we've watched a couple where one has started to criticise the other, whether that criticism is valid or not, for doing something that they are not happy with them doing.
Or listen to a podcast where the two people go into settling differences about whether one was ill or not earlier in the week.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's just really well. Like, I could see that they'd been together, they built this beautiful house together, they had all this stuff in the kitchen, you know, it really felt like a lived-in home. It felt like a marriage with all of its ups and downs and longevity. And it was so believable to me that those two were together, and also that they would invite Irv into their house, and that Fields would be interested to meet this man, trying to act like forgive with his faith as well, trying to forgive, trying to understand that, you know, the two innies might have got together, but then also had I thought it was really interesting, given the sort of the romance that we're seeing with the other characters, had very valid questions around unprotected sex.
Well, yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
And I mean, that comes back. I mean, I know there's been, especially with the babies in the what's it called? The
credits. The title sequence.
I mean, Mark and Helly/Helena, outie in, have had sex twice now.
Yes.
And presumably unprotected, unless she's on the pill or has some other type of contraception. So there is this idea of, you know, if you're having sex with these people that I don't know about, could that be a ramification for someone else within the group, you know, within the party? So I thought that was actually, again, it felt authentic to me that he would be asking these questions as someone who is related to the, you know, the people who were there. I don't think he's making it up at all. I think he knows exactly what he's doing, and I think Bert is trying to cover it. And I think Bert is part of Lumen.
I mean, the other thing that's going on along the side of this is Mr. Drummond is breaking into Irv's house with his big key, like a school janitor.
I mean, and again, like, all these houses, they're all like, they're related to Kier and the province of Kier or whatever it is. And Mark's living on Lumen property with no one else around him. It feels like Irv's all by himself as well. I think their property, you don't see any neighbours. It's always them going in and out without anyone else around. And I just get the impression that Drummond's got keys to every house in that neighbourhood of all the people. I just don't understand what he's doing. He's going into Irv's special sort of what would you call it, like a trunk with all of his father's stuff in. He's looking at what Irv's been doing, but I don't know why that's now relevant, that he knows that he's looking.
Yeah, so it was, I mean, at the top of the piece of paper is duplicates removed, which is, I don't know whether that's in reference to the data, in that they've removed duplicate people, you know, or whether that's people who've been duplicates removed, like, from this process. But yeah, I mean, it's weird because if you've got that level of data, you would think he wouldn't. I think we said this last week. I think he'd know who Bert was beforehand because he's got a map and a house is circled on there. And it says Bert, Bert on there, which was really handy for when you've
with a
been,
big arrow going, go here.
When you're in overtime, it's like, you are here, take the fort. Yeah, it's almost like better directions than his one to the corridor that's hidden behind, hanging in there. And
it was the other thing was, I was thinking about from the show's point of view. I'm always thinking about Lost. But, you know, Lost would, like, give you tidbits of things, and you would be able to take a screenshot, and you would be able to look into them. We've seen these documents before, so I didn't know why we were seeing them again, because it didn't strike me as if there was, and I haven't looked, but it didn't strike me as if there was anything new. It was new, perhaps, to people who aren't taking the screenshots, because I noticed something that said Two Brothers or something in pencil at the top that I hadn't seen before. I think it's meaningless. But why were we seeing these documents again? I do not know.
I mean, it does feel a little bit like we've missed a scene somewhere where we need to understand why this is happening, or because it was almost like it was in the background. If you were playing with your phone, you could quite easily have missed that entire plot point.
Yeah.
This is the rewarding thing of this. This is why we don't have our phones on during it. We don't.
Also, where was the dog? Like, where's Radar when you need him?
Probably might be asleep.
I know, but you would think that a dog would know that someone's breaking into the home and would, but yeah. Anyway, I'm sure we'll find out. Mr. Drummond is an interesting character, and they just keep showing his frolic tattoo every time. I feel like I might get one of them. No, I won't.
I don't think hand's a place to start.
I don't think frolic on my hand is the place to start.
No, absolutely not. No.
Definitely not.
Quick thing on Mr. Milchek.
Yeah.
Because he's reacting to his
subordinate.
Yes. No, well, he's reacting to his review that was last week and almost sort of doing lines by taking his paper clips that he put on the wrong way and then repeatedly put paper clipping things together.
Because he goes into it with such like focus, which Milchek always does, doesn't he? He's always going to do it 100%, and he wants things to be right. Do you remember when the screen it still said like "Welcome, Miss Cabell" or whatever,
yes.
"Hello, Miss Cabell," and he was like, "But it's still not." That would really bother me as well. And if someone did say to me, "You put the paper clips on," I would redo them, and I would make it. And there's that resolve in him to get all of his work and get it right again. But when he finishes, I had a real sense of empathy for him, because he was just like, like, I've done this. I don't want to be doing this. Why am I doing this with my life? And then the little mirror and and saying his lines. It's the lines is interesting, isn't it? Grow and grow up. And he's saying it to her, but he's saying it to himself.
Going back to the paper clips, you say it would annoy you.
Yeah.
Are all your coat hangers in your wardrobe, does the hook always face the same way?
Yeah. Why?
Really?
Yeah.
I've never noticed that.
I don't like. Yeah, I wouldn't have them going different ways. Not because I'm obsessive and like going through my wardrobe's a bit of a state. All right, thanks. But no, I wouldn't be able to. It just wouldn't be me. I just wouldn't do it.
Do they all face away from the point of it away from?
Yeah,
you,
point away. They all point away. I like the curvy bit facing towards me when I open the wardrobe doors. Why does this have any relevance, and why are you smiling? Like,
I'm just interested. I mean, next time you don't say sorry, I'm definitely just putting the odd one the other way around and leaving it.
You know what? I probably wouldn't even know. I'd just go back and just change around. And then after a while, I'd be like, what is happening here?
I'd know.
Yeah, I know you know. But yeah, I do feel sorry for him, because he's trying to... It's the thing of like when you're involved in an organisation that's belittling you, and it's like this passive aggressiveness that you've got to play the game, but also it's wasting time. You're in a dark room where, surely he wants to be out on his motorbike, having a good time, and he wants to use his long words, and I want him to use his long words.
It did feel kind of like, getting the whip out and.
Yeah,
is it self-flagellating?
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, it did feel like that, didn't it?
Like that's how he was punishing himself for doing a bad job.
Yeah.
I think he's concentrating on the wrong parts of it. I mean, deal with 1 and 2 and then deal with the CEO almost getting drowned after that.
Yeah. And while he's down there doing all of that,
chaos reigns supreme.
Absolutely. Where is Miss Wang? She's meant to be looking after at her own desk. She's not. After he has a conversation with her, she's nowhere to be seen. She's not wandering the corridors looking for them.
In many ways, it's maybe a comment on putting an 11-year-old in charge of some adults.
She's really interesting, because you get to know a little bit more that it's almost like an internship or a fellowship, and if she does really well, she'll be. So it reminded me of when you see Cobell has been to like the Kia Egan school. I know it's not called that, but she went to like what's the word I'm looking for? Like an associated school. Like you would do if you were thinking about, religions that we know of. you would go to the school that was associated with your religion, and you'd be brought up within that school. She's had the same, but with Kia, Egan, and all of those teachings.
Yeah, I mean, in Hull, let's go back to Hull, there is schools like associated with like the sailing. So
Yes,
you have
right.
there was a school, Trinity House in Hull, where if you want to work at sea, you go to this school, and it's the weird thing is it's got a 6-day timetable. So if you're doing something on a Monday, you do it on a Tuesday the next week.
Wow.
that was all I knew as a kid.
Sailing.
This might be like
And is that, don't they have like almost like sailing uniforms and part of your schooling is around?
Yeah,
I
what
want
to do
say
out
like
at sea.
seacraft.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, I imagine it's like, I don't know, do people do knots anymore? Or anything like that?
We'll probably have to.
I'm just going to say now, the thing about the 6-day timetable might have been the equivalent of what our school found out about the other school. Like how the goat people thought that...
They have a 6-day timetable.
Yeah, they have pouches and keep their young in there.
Oh, that's really... I hadn't thought about that.
It's never occurred to me that, but yeah. And then can we get on to... It's not the ending, because the ending is of leaving Bert's house. But I think the big almost cliffhanger is obviously we have Mark having his chip removed and then taking it
flooded,
quite badly.
Isn't it? Like the chip is flooded, so it's still in there, but a bit like putting an electronics in some water.
Yes.
We now presume it isn't working.
Spongy scalp, aren't he?
Ooh, I mean, and like not being funny, but that was a big hole they put in his head. Like I didn't feel it should. I thought it was almost like microsurgery but that really looked huge.
You could fit a golf ball down there.
I mean,
You could fit one of the balls from Westworld down there.
Oh God, not that again.
Put one in and you've got Dolores.
Every week, I think we mentioned Westworld and Lost. It's like honeymoon period bingo, really, isn't it? But he meets Helena, and that pushes. It's another one of those consequence things that they do really, really well. I'm reading loads of books on how to write like narrative, and one of the things that they always say is someone has to make a decision based off something happening. There has to be this push towards it. He can't just have just been sat around thinking, you know what, actually I will get this going a bit quicker. In meeting her in the Chinese restaurant, that's what pushes him to do the next thing. Which is to go back to Ragabi and say, I'm sorry for being a dick, which I really liked.
Yeah.
Sorry for being a dick.
Funny that.
Let's get on with it. Let's get on with it. So yeah, and it has to move on, because otherwise what are we going to do? We're going to sit there for weeks while every week he slowly has these flashes until he's suddenly together. And this then, as I say, then gives them the opportunity. It's almost like a blank. Everything goes blank at the end of the episode, which then means that we can do anything next episode, a bit like the Audible, because the same thing happened, didn't it? And that's the only criticism I have, is it feels repetitive, this ending, to the bit where he has met Ragabi again and they're down in the basement and she does something to the chip.
Yes.
This feels the same, apart from you've got Devon, who's suddenly arrived.
Yeah, it's almost like we could have delayed the actual the first procedure, the reintegration, felt absolutely rushed. Like Ragabi walked out from behind a barn, like Dungeon Master walking out from behind a rock in Dungeons and Dragons.
So funny.
And then 5 minutes later, he's had it done.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they didn't just like have him debating it and having Ragabi stop him with him or something, because it's not like it's been used to sort of play tricks with the narrative, but it's not wasn't a major part of the Audible episode in the slightest, apart from Gemma appeared at one point, but
which you could have put down to any. He could have been doing that anyway.
And then he's had a couple of things this week and last week, like minor things. We could have just had this being the being the process, but I mean, like I said, there are cleverer people than me writing this, so I'm sure there is a reason, and it might be that in a couple of episodes' time, we're like, oh, that's exactly why.
Yeah, I do feel that with the blood coming out the nose and all of that, it doesn't look good for Mark.
No.
And
I've got a note saying, is Mark dead?
Yeah.
I don't think he is, because
No,
I don't
think
think
he is.
I think that would be and I think if they wanted you to think that, then that would be the Fade to Black, directed by moment there. The fact that we moved on from that so quickly thought to me it was probably some, he's just collapsed.
Yeah.
just collapsed after
foaming at the mouth, and,
after someone flooding his brain.
Someone put some water down his head. Yeah, lovely. But I'm glad that Devon's involved, because now she knows, and she's going to be part of the story as well, because I really like her as a character, and I wish she had been more involved this series, but maybe she is now from this point on. I don't know.
So I think consequence of doing this 24 hours after seeing it is we didn't just go into straight our thoughts on it, because we discussed that last night, but absolutely the best episode of the season so far.
I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah.
And I think it was because it dealt with so much. We moved the plot along. We moved the plot along with so many different people, but we also dealt with so much of what it's meant to be an innie. And that sort of social experiment kind of is played out in real time all the way through fiction.
And in each context, isn't it? So each one of those could have been the focus of like a Black Mirror episode, for example. But because it's character driven, which is great, but we're within those characters, we're also seeing, oh, this what would happen if you were married to someone. This what would happen if you had potentially a relationship with someone who was an innie and you didn't know. Then, this is what would happen if all four of you, each personality was involved. I think it's really good storytelling. But it goes back to that fundamental point of series 1, which actually took me a long time to figure out, which is this idea of 2 people in one body and one person being in control of whether the other exists.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, best episode of the season. I still have my misgivings about the pace of this and where they're going to end up, but it's because I enjoyed this show so much that's why I
think it's the first time I felt like if I had access to the next episode, I would be tempted to watch it now. Giving me the side, Mark's giving me the side eye, because I don't mean without you. It would just be the sort of thing where if we had access to it, I would be saying to you, let's say if we were doing it, if it was all on the telly and we were behind everyone else.
Yeah.
I probably would be saying to you at this point, oh, do you fancy watching another episode tonight?
Yes.
Because I'd want to see what happened next. And I haven't felt like that. Not that I've not enjoyed them, because obviously I have. But I haven't felt that burning desire of, oh, if I had it on a screener, or if I had it, on the skybox because we were a bit behind, I'd try and persuade you to maybe give it a break for a couple of nights, but then do it quicker than a week, So, this is the first time I've sort of gone, oh, I wonder what is going to happen next. But also because I saw the trailer ages ago, and I remembered a lot of the detail from the trailer. So I remembered the goats, I remember Gwendolyn Christie. There were some scenes with Mark, and there were I knew they were going to go outside because I saw the outfits, the big hats and the coats.
Oh yeah.
So I saw lots of things, knowing that there was going to be an outdoors, for example, that they were not just going to be all inside, that there was the 4 of them on a cliff top. All of those things have now gone. I saw Irv's melon head and thought he was retiring.
Oh,
so the trailer led me to believe, and I hadn't told you about this because I didn't want to ruin anything for you, but now I've got to a point where I can't remember seeing anything now that wasn't in the trailer. If that doesn't make sense, but you know what I mean. I've all the big things from the trailer that I remember, and I didn't watch it over and over again, but I watched it once and I thought, oh, blah, blah, blah. You gather things in your mind and you go, right, I think they're going to go outside, I think there's going to be a melon. I've got nothing left of that now.
Okay, so we'll probably we are getting into the last 4 episodes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as I understand it, like Empires and people who reviewed it have seen all 10. And that surprises me, because I think for a show like this, like certainly last year, you might do the first. There's 9 episodes in last season. You might do the first 8, but you definitely withhold the last one.
Yeah.
Because you don't want that to be
To leak.
to leak to anyone. I'm surprised that if they've put all of the all of them out there, but hey, look,
it's great. I mean, good for everyone who's seen it and hasn't let the cat out of the bag, because it's hard not to do that. Even I'm thinking about Succession, and I remember people saying, "Oh, there's a really big episode coming up. There's a really big episode," and that gave the game away to me. That that there was going to be something so monumental that it was going to change the show. And I think people were being really careful about that as well. But it was just by saying it, you knew what was going to happen, or you knew that there was something that was going to occur within that episode. So I haven't heard anything at all. I mean, I haven't read the reviews on purpose, but I listen to a lot of podcasts, as you know, and I haven't heard anyone say, "Oh, when you get to episode 9, oh, that's a real game changer," or "you're gonna love blah 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 episode." I think everyone's been really, really careful, which has been great. Right, let's wrap it up. Yeah.
Well, thank you, and apologies that we are not as prompt as we were, but yeah, it was like I said, when podcast royalty call in, sorry,
we put a lamp in front of us. We changed our clothes.
We changed our clothes just so we could look better.
So we could look better on camera. We angled the camera accordingly. Yeah.
I mean, camera on top of a laptop is never flattering.
It was not flattering at all.
I saw chins that I had not seen.
There were roles going on in my world that were interesting.
Yeah. Do you know when we locked down and we were all feeling bad about ourselves because, we weren't going out as much? I didn't do an exercise regime. I got a thing that would heighten my webcam even further. So, and I just felt instantly better about myself.
I said this to you last night. No one ever looks good sitting forwards on their sofa with a camera pointed at them.
Yeah, absolutely.
No one will ever look good in that position. And
yes.
We didn't. Fab. So yes, please go and have a listen to the cinema, because they're absolutely fab. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.